Ahora vas a conocer a Dios.
Whenever I watch Sicario, I get obsessed with one small, stupid detail. These random shots of dust swirling about in the air. There's 3 shots of dust flying around in the air in Sicario. Here, here, and here. In the final mission, I'm assuming that the little white dots that show up on the night vision goggles are also dust particles, right? Denis Villeneuve is one of the greatest directors of our time. Everything he puts in frame is there for a reason. So why does he care so much about dust particles in Sicario? This is why a film like this is begging to be broken down with pages and pages of notes. Let's explain a few of Sicario's hidden themes and messages, starting with the dust. On one hand, the dust could represent things unseen, which is a huge theme in Sicario. This movie speaks of ghosts and darkness and the obscurity that our intelligence agencies operate in.
This is going to be on the front page of every newspaper in America.
No, it won't. They won't even make the papers in El Paso.
This won't even make the papers in El Paso, says Steve Forsing after they murdered a dozen men at the Mexican-American border. Light illuminates dust particles in the air which were there the whole time. We just couldn't see them. This is also shown at the end of the film through the crew's night vision goggles. I'm no night vision expert, but I'm pretty sure those white dots are little dust particles. Another representation could be chaos, which is exactly what Matt wants. Kate's boss tells her,
advisors like Matt come in, they stir the pot that causes the criminals to react and make mistakes.
I saw the dust in the sense of the dust that gets kicked up in all of this chaos. And what's a better visual representation of chaos than dust swirling in a random pattern in the air? Borders. Borders mean a lot in Sicario, and it's something the director plays with incessantly. We're meant to believe that borders are here to protect us from our enemy in Mexico, when, terrifyingly, our enemy is right here within our own borders in the form of our own government, and they have a huge border between us and them too. You'll see evidence of borders all throughout this film, whether it's the actual border between Mexico and the USA, or a game like soccer which has clear inbounds and out of bounds lines. At one point, Jennings tells Kate,
so if your fear is operating out of bounds, I am telling you, you are not.
Reggie says, CIA's not supposed to work this side of the fence. Villeneuve includes many overhead shots of American neighborhoods showing the fences that separate each house from the other one.
Do you have a husband?
Divorced?
Ted's a good guy.
Divorced.
Kate's divorced, Ted's divorced. What used to be one is now two, with a border in between. Not to mention the start of the movie opens with a raid on a house in Phoenix, and bodies being found within the borders, between rooms, in the walls. There's so much we're oblivious to in the United States, and that's because our government has a huge wall or border between us and them. But there's another important border we haven't talked about, and that is the line between chaos and order. Matt says he hates lawyers. It's ironic because we learned that Alejandro, his biggest asset, was once a prosecutor in the Juarez area. He tells Kate,
What you're doing here is you're giving us the opportunity to shake the tree and create chaos. That's what this is.
which is weird because he doesn't actually want chaos at the end of the day. At the end of the film, he says,
Medellin refers to a time when one group controlled every aspect of the drug trade, providing a measure of order that we could control.
So Matt wants to use chaos to create order, an order that the USA can then control themselves. Alejandro tells Kate at the end of the movie that she should move to a small town where the rule of law still exists. And Kate, throughout the entire movie, is obsessed with doing things by the book. And despite prosecuting now more than ever, the FBI doesn't feel any difference on the streets. I love how Villeneuve plays with the imagery of borders in so many different fascinating ways in Sicario to give us a bunch of different messages. Mirrors. One of my favorite shots in Sicario is when Kate stands in front of a mirror and her face is fogged out in the reflection. We see Kate framed in a mirror many times in this movie, like a lot. My best interpretation of this idea is that when we look over at Mexico from the United States, we're basically looking at ourselves in the mirror. We're seeing a land that's just like us. Alejandro tells Kate that we'll take a leg from them after she almost gets choked to death. Kind of like how the cartels mutilate bodies and leave them hanging from overpasses. Steve Forsing says that it's brilliant what the cartels do.
It's brilliant what they do. When they mutilate a body like that, they make people think they must have been involved. They must deserve such a death because they did something. Oh, it's brilliant what they do.
There's a level of respect and admiration between the cartels in the United States, which is kind of weird. And I think it's there because we both recognize that we're wolves at the end of the day. We are both the same. Alejandro says you need to watch out for the state police in Mexico. Well, same with Ted, who's a police officer in Texas. He's corrupt, right? And like the cartels would probably do to policemen in Mexico, Matt blackmails Ted, threatening the safety of his family if he doesn't cooperate. We kill people and leave their bodies on the pavement, just like the cartels do. Perhaps the most alarming proof of this idea is when Alejandro visits Kate at the very end of the movie and puts a gun to her head, threatening her life if she doesn't sign a piece of paper saying they did everything by the book. Blackmail and threatening people with death is something the cartels do probably every single day. We are the same. We do the same things, albeit in different ways. We are a mirror image of Mexico, whether we like it or not. Ghosts. After their first mission, Kate tells Matt,
"You're a fucking spook."
Ghosts and being scared are big themes in Sicario. When Alejandro goes to get water, his friend tells him,
"I didn't know ghosts got thirsty."
On the private jet, Kate watches Alejandro when he's sleeping. His hand starts shaking and he wakes up suddenly, scaring the bejesus out of Kate. At the end of the movie, Alejandro tells Kate, "You look like a little girl when you're scared." This is a theme, and I think the final nail in this coffin is the scene at the very end when US soldiers storm an underground tunnel used for crossing the border. The night vision goggles illuminate characters in green, but the thermal vision makes them bright white, like ghosts. I thought this was such a clever visual trick from Villeneuve to show US forces quite literally white as ghosts, spooking the cartels, shaking the tree, as Matt said, to create chaos and make them make mistakes. It also plays into the whole idea that the US can't see what our own government is really doing. The CIA and other intelligence agencies operate as ghosts, doing whatever they want, and we're none the wiser. Finding the men responsible. A throwaway line in Sicario is when Matt asks Kate if she wants to find the men responsible for this tragedy.
Do you want to find the guys responsible, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
It's ironic because Kate does, in fact, find the men responsible. Us. The USA. The cartel boss at the end of the movie says,
Do you think the people that sent you here are any different? Who do you think we learned it from?
I just thought this was a super ironic line that shouldn't be lost in the fray. Indian Creek cigarettes. Indian Creek Cigarettes is a fictional company set in the Sicario universe. Kate smokes them, and the corrupt police officer in Mexico smokes them. We can see a pack of them sitting by his bed. In many ways, Kate and Officer Silvio are mirror images of one another. They both represent the rule of law, they both get caught up in something they had no intention of getting into, and they both use alcohol and cigarettes to cope with what it is they're asked to do. They're both living in a land of wolves, and they're not wolves. I think this also deepens the image of Mexico and the USA being mirror images of one another. The pawns in their schemes even use the same cigarettes. Heaven and hell. In the hills surrounding Juarez, we can see the message, La Biblia es la verdad, Leila. That translates to, the Bible is the truth, read it. There's a lot of religious messages in Sicario, starting with that one. Alejandro says, now you'll learn what's hell in Yankee Land, to Guillermo right before he tortures him. And before that, Matt tells Steve, you're giving him a belly full of water? You devil. My favorite shot of Sicario is the one showing silhouettes of US soldiers against a bright Texas sunset. One by one, they descend into the darkness, almost like they're descending into hell. In the cartel boss's house, we see the Virgin of Guadalupe, which is an extremely popular religious figure to folks here in Mexico. There's tons of religious artifacts and messages in Sicario. Why? Honestly, I think it gets back to rules, borders, and what's out of bounds. Obviously, religion has a very strict code of what you should and shouldn't do. I also found it interesting that the director put in so many aerial shots in this movie. I think this is meant to imply that the USA has the power of God. We see everything. There's so many shots of cameras in this movie as well. Big Brother is always watching. Not to mention the drones that we use to spy on cartel members in this movie. We are basically God. And instead of playing by an honest set of rules, we abuse our power and act more like the devil than God. That's all I got for Sicario today. I'd love to hear your opinion on some of the things that you might have seen in this movie. If you want, sign up for my Substack. It's free. It's a newsletter that has all of the written versions of these videos that I put here on YouTube sent to your inbox every week. So sign up for that. It's free. That way you can always get notified whenever I drop a new video. The link is in the description. Also, if you could like this video and even subscribe to my channel, that'd be awesome. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.